Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
I'm not going to lie, I've always appreciated it when things aren't afraid to get a little weird. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave White, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, enlightened in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on that limb and assume that you do, because quite frankly, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a little 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok. I think the Threads too, and probably some other places that I've forgotten about. And In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us that kindness, and please pay us a visit. Boy, oh boy, boys and girls, on this episode we got a fun one on VOD platforms now. We're going to be talking a little Marmalade, which is a fun, comedic, bit of a fanciful, little bit of a wild romp. I mean, and it's from writer-director Keir O'Donnell, starring Joe Keery, Camilla Morone, and Aldous Hodge. And it follows the story of a man in jail who narrates the tale of his life, which is a colorful, romantic bank heist to his cellmate, and they plot to escape so he can reunite with the alluring love of his life. But things are not always quite as they seem, and it's in the vein of a lot of stuff. There's a little Usual Suspects. There's a little bit of manic pixie girl stuff going on. It's a fun ride, and we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with writer-director Keir O'Donnell just about the origins of the story, getting his cast together, making the film, and so very much more. But like I said, if you're up for a bit of a wild ride, go check out Marmalade on video on demand platforms now. But first, enjoy our talk with Keir O'Donnell because it's a darn good one. Just thank you so much for the time, man. I really appreciate this, and congrats on the movie, man. It's a hell of a ride.
Thank you so much.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is because, I mean, on one end, there is this like borderline fairy tale, ethereal romance going on, but at the same time, I have this sort of sense of, a usual suspect's sense of someone's about to pull the curtain, pull the rug out from under me at the same time. Walk me through the origin of the story.
I mean, man, that's it. You nailed a bunch of the references already. I grew up loving the movies, the late 80s and 90s, obviously, kind of style meeting substance and, anything big and pulpy and involving a heist or this sort of Bonnie and Clyde genre. So I sort of like took all the influences that created my sort of artistic aesthetic and sort of put them all together and tried to find my own twist on it all. So that involved everything from like Raising Arizona to True Romance to, like you said, Usual Suspects, kind of has this whimsical fantasy emulate.
For sure, for sure. Now, I mean, I love the cast too. I mean, Joe, Aldous, I love the dynamic between them as sort of he's telling the story, but also Camille. I mean, it kind of feels like you found her sort of on the brink of becoming a very big deal because I mean, honestly, she is fantastic to watch in this film. Talk to me a little bit about finding the right people for everything on this.
Of course, I wrote uh, uh, characters with hired some performers with the. I was aware of Joe's work, right? Obviously from Strangers of his blossoming career so far, but I knew he always had this like sweetness, this kind of genuineness on screen that the role of Baron really required. So it started there, and then I had many discussions with Joe, and he was just so excited and so on board. He wanted to do something that was kind of as far from Stranger Things as possible, and it was so collaborative. So we got to really jump in there, and he took a swing for the fences, and it was just a joy to kind of see him get immersed in it every day. And then with Marmalade, similar thing, right? We needed someone who could sort of emulate this. The trope is like the manic pixie dream
Of
girl, right?
course,
And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
wanted to kind of I wanted to sort of lure the audience in with something that felt familiar in that sense, but it needed a little bit more dangerousness and a little bit more kind of magnetism. And then of course, the counter side of that is like she needs to be very vulnerable, right? At certain points, and she needs to have chemistry with Baron, and she can't just be too harsh that you're like, why he would never go for her, or some, there has to be some sort of like a loving essence to her as well. So again, difficult to find the right actress, and Camilla came in to read for it, and just immediately I knew like that was it, right? Like she just understood the sensibilities of that, and she's able to sort of switch on a dime, right? From that kind of like harrowing sort of like
Right.
that's really scary to like, oh, like so warm. So it's almost this kind of like almost like an abusive relationship, in a lot of senses that she almost understand why someone would sort of be hooked along for that ride. So man, oh man, we got lucky with her, and like you said, she's in for a big ride ahead. Yeah.
No, it was wild because I mean, obviously
Similar
she.
thing with
So go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to go on to Aldous now
Oh, please,
next
please.
too.
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
mean, that's the sort of third top role, right? Is Otis played by Aldous Hodge, and again requires a certain duality without giving anything away. And here comes Aldous. I was very familiar with his work, and we had some friends in common, and luckily, Aldous just read the script and loved it. So it was just, man, what a joy to work with him. I mean, he's such a pro on and off screen and able to take directions so well. It was sort of like because with specifically with his character, it was kind of like how much should we push the characterizations and how much can we kind of tone, the stakes of each situation early on in the film and later on, and he just got it right away and just gave me so many levels. It was and a lot of comedy too. Like
Well,
really
I
great
mean, they were
comedy.
both fantastic because I mean, there really was this element of you being drawn in and drawn in as a viewer, and then all of a sudden there's this moment where it's like, uh-oh, what have I done? I'm too invested in this person now.
That's it. Yeah, that's perfect, right? I mean, that is part of the design of it, right? Is sort of like give the audience something very familiar where they feel almost safe or kind of they get ahead of the film a little bit. And then by a certain point, I want to be able to get ahead of them and,
Right.
go into completely.
Now, I mean, talk to me a little bit about the visual aesthetic of it all, because I mean, so much of this film is really washed in light. And I mean, it's an independent production. I mean, pulling off stuff like that isn't always easy. Can you talk to me a little bit about just making this film really look almost like it was happening on another plane of existence, especially when we're getting the storytelling, as it were.
Well, I mean, first, that's a massive compliment. So thank you for that. And we worked incredibly hard, to obviously it was a very stylized film, and I knew that going in that it was going to be difficult to pull off with their limited budget and limited amount of days. We shot the whole film in 19 days with 40 plus locations. So it was to keep the consistency, right? Was the biggest challenge for me as a first time director as well to communicate to the different departments to make all making the same film at the same time. Luckily, when I wrote the script, I had thought about, the world that I knew the only way to kind of convey it was I made a lookbook that went with the script. And so I was able to sort of like we used that all throughout shooting, and I'm happy to say that when I look back at that, it's like almost exact to what we put on screen. But that was working with my DP, Polly Morgan, was like incredible and just understood exactly what needed for the story, and it was just kind of like how far can we push it with costumes to kind of get really big pops of color, and
Yeah.
we got so lucky with locations and then this sort of the LUT that we use on the cameras like created we wanted a very sort of like nostalgic feel to it that that was like very rich in tone, but also kind of, had a sort of 90s reminiscent feeling to it.
So I got to ask, are you the actor who's always wanted to direct, or were you sort of the director that was trapped in the body of an actor who finally has gotten out now?
I would say the former, that, I never had like huge designs to direct, but I think the more and more that I've been on a hell of a lot of sets as an actor, and worked with a wide variety of directors, certainly, from legends like Clint Eastwood and, Matt Reeves now, to first time directors. So I've seen a sort of gamut of kind of, at least for me personally, of like what works and what doesn't work, or at least, kind of stealing little pieces of like, oh, that's interesting, and so I think I was building a kind of, a sensibility for it, along the way, and it only became sort of, clear to me once I wrote the script. It was like I cannot hand this one off. This one I've got to sit in the chair for. So
Having been in the
I
chair and
love.
on the other side now for the first time, was there sort of a, oh, I get it moment? Sort of, oh, that's what that, like, because obviously you could see things as an actor, but now you have to see it as a director.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, what's fascinating is that, like I said, I've been on a lot of sets. So when we were on set, that felt very, very familiar to me. I mean, be it I'm behind the camera instead of in front of the camera, but I knew kind of, what every uh, department did. And I certainly knew how to talk to actors. I knew different processes required different directions. So what works for one actor might not work for another. So those things felt quite secondhand. But the part of the process I'd never seen is pre-production and
Yeah,
post-production, right? So before and after, and that kind of blew my mind, especially the post-production, because of course, I've seen my own performances get chopped up to next
right.
to nothing sometimes, or it's like, wait, why did they pick that take? And once you get in the editing room, you're like, sometimes you only have that take, or it's essential for the storyline, and you're not thinking about, certain actors, fulfilling their sort of, wants and needs. So a lot of it became clear in those moments of like, I see now.
You had
You're
that
just at the
moment of, damn
mercy
it, I
of.
needed the coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So really fascinating to kind of like see the whole, the wheels that go on behind the machine.
For sure. No, I mean, just put a bow on this. It's a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask. Like, we're in a unique business because most of us come to this business as fans first. What were the movies that kind of had the
Mhm.
light bulb go off in your head that made you want to get into this business?
Oh man. I mean, a lot of the ones that influenced this movie, right? So it was Raising Arizona, and True Romance, and Princess Bride, and God, but any Spielberg, I mean, all the E.T.
Yeah,
growing
I see
up,
the
Indiana
emblem for sure.
Jones,
Yeah,
anything that was like, it seems to be a common thread, which is like fun, exciting, adventurous, like wild rides. So anytime that anyone associates that with this film, with Marmalade, I'm thrilled.
well, honestly, Kier, man, I can't wait for more people to see Marmalade because again, it's kind of this glorious mashup that really manages to keep you off balance a little bit, not knowing what's going to come next. And I mean, and that's the fun of it all. That's the point. We don't go to a movie for the destination. We go for the ride 9 times out of 10. And this to me was one hell of a ride. But I mean, again, my friend, congrats on the work and thank you so much for the time today.
Nice. I really appreciate it, man. Nice
All
speaking
righty.
with you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.